This makes me think a little bit about the idea of participation. Burning Man, has always been participants only. It feels a little bit less that way, in a place like Burning Life. And I'm wondering, do you see that, or do you see, this as being, a place where there is plenty of opportunity for people to participate? The visitors, not necessarily artists, but people who are just coming to check it out.
Who's that question to?
Anybody.
We've tried to make it very, or give people a lot of opportunity to participate. We do have groups like the Lamplighters that are pretty much open-ended. Anybody can come along and participate in that. We've also got a lot of interactive stuff on Gate Road, giving people items of clothing that make them feel like they're part of the thing. Getting people out through tours and things like that, and trying to introduce them to the artists themselves, because actually a lot of the artworks here, like at Burning Man, were created by large groups of builders and artists. So there is quite a bit of opportunity to participate here. We're hoping to increase it even more next year. But
I'm a tourist here myself, and I'm just wondering how many of the artworks are interactive. How many invite people to do something that puts them in relationship to work and to other people?
Quite a few of them. I mean, especially when you consider the fact that you can climb around or fly around through any of them, and they offer unique perspectives every moment. Every time you turn your head, it's a completely different thing you're looking at. So it is very interactive. It draws you in, definitely.
I'd say that the other thing that's different about Second Life, of course, has always been that if you look statistically across the whole world, there's actually a much larger percentage of people making things than consuming them. And it was one of the things we watched as the world grew, and people often thought that Second Life creativity, the sort of fraction of stuff that people were building themselves versus consuming, would really drop precipitously as the world grew. And certainly Second Life isn't yet gigantic. It's not the size of the web, so we can't yet say that it's sort of a statistical average of all, say, internet users. But people still create an enormous amount of stuff here, and they create much more than they do in the real world. And I think the reason for that just goes back to what I originally, wanted to do in building Second Life, which is I just wanted to make it easier to build things. Even if you look at Burning Man today, there are wonderful skills like welding that are difficult in the real world to acquire. You have to learn to weld, and it's quite a job. And welding is a huge part of the beauty of many of the things you see at Burning Man. So I hope that as time goes by and as digital worlds become easier to manipulate matter inside, there'll continue to be this sort of Burning Man spirit of many people building things.
That reminds me of an experience I had in the desert this year. A fellow whose blind name was Lucky built a 10-story skyscraper out of steel. This is $750,000 worth of metal. It was it was modular. It went up in 4 days and down in 4 days. Rather like a set of Legos. It was a unique construction, patented construction. I asked him about his experience. He said, well, I came 6 years ago and I experimented with a tricycle and that didn't work out, so finally I decided to do this.
What was the connection between the tricycle and the
well, he'd started with a tricycle, and he decided that was inappropriate technology. It didn't meet his expectations, so he finally built an actual skyscraper.
What I thought was really amazing was the fact that he erected a steel skyscraper in 4 days.
That was unbelievable.
It was staged on My first experience of this was I was in my trailer back in the little town of Gerlach, which is where we own some property, and I stepped out of my trailer, and there was all this steel staged on semi truck beds, and someone said to me, "Gosh, Larry, what's that for?" And I said, "I have no idea. It wasn't funded art. And therefore, I didn't know about it. This was basically drop-in art. He just asked our permission to come, and that's what he brought."
That is totally the thing.
Metal when he took it down.
Well, he's a businessman, and he said to me, "I don't know what the future prospects for what this are, but I know it's mobile, I know it's modular, I can set it up anywhere, and I'm sure it's going to work out just fine."
So
That is totally... Go ahead.
Dusty.
That's totally the thing that I love about both Second Life and Burning Man, is that it just proves how many people are creative and just waiting for the tools and permission to be creative.
Yeah.
Yes, what was amazing about this guy is that he never had permission outside of Burning Man to do something like this, but he knew that he could do it, and we just gave him the chance.
That leads perhaps to another audience question from Ignatius Onomatopoeia, who says, how can Second Life change the broader culture to bring some burner spirit to real life? Anybody like to answer that one?
Probably just by spreading the idea more quickly.
The fact that people can be anywhere and experience what's happening right here helps bring Burning Man culture to the broader world.
Yeah, and I think I can tell you that there's a lot of anecdotal evidence that people's participation in Second Life is doing exactly that, because, and this is something that's been studied quite a bit, the malleability of the digital world. I mean, when you go out to Burning Man, you see this place where you can build anything, and in fact, in a lot of cases, you get involved doing just that, you know. And you feel empowered because you have, with your own hands, helped to create something, and that's an experience that I think just about everybody that comes to Burning Man has, you know, not just the people who got to help put up that skyscraper. And I think that being in Second Life is it's a more accessible thing because we can get more people in here over time because you can do it from your computer rather than having to drive out to the desert. That does spread the same kind of feeling. If you're in Second Life and you build something, which almost everybody does, you're going to come back to the real world and say, hey, why can't I build that here? And I don't know, at least for me, I remember after Burning Man just being extraordinarily inspired to try and make things in the real world that I had seen there, and that I think the same thing is I hope the same thing is happening here with Second Life.
I don't see why it can't, because obviously here there are elaborate artworks that have been built by teams, have been built collaboratively, and what's happened at Burning Man is people go back to the world, and finally they inherit whole communities, teams that are used to working together, inspired by a common goal, ready to share their gifts and unite in their efforts. I think that translates into, I think the experience in this environment can translate back into the world in the same fashion.